It's bubble season, guys. What's up, everyone? It's Colin. Unless you live under a rock, you know the NBA season is going to start on July 30th. For the next few weeks until the season begins, I'll be making as many team previews as possible as we close in on some basketball, and hopefully as I close in on 10k subs on this channel as well. So I hope you do give me a sub if you like the content you see. But before I talk about basketball, I must recognize first the different variables that currently hover over the heads of most of the NBA community and most of the people even outside the community, with both the pandemic and social justice concerns as 1A and 1B. Now, this is a basketball channel, but I also don't want to belittle the importance of what's going on in our world, so I'll be leaving a couple of links in the description if you want to donate to pandemic relief or to the NAACP. And to my fellow Filipinos out there, I'll also be leaving a link to an Instagram account which helps donate to jeepney drivers who are out of work right now in the Philippines. So guys, I highly encourage you check out those links and do donate. But with that said, let's get into the first of these bubble previews. And what better way to begin than with the defending NBA champion Toronto Raptors, whom I perceive as the most realistic dark horse of the teams headed for Disney World. How do you define a dark horse? Well, to put it literally, the dictionary definition of dark horse, according to our friend Google, is a candidate or competitor about whom little is known but who unexpectedly wins or succeeds. The Raptors can easily pass the description about whom little is known. Let's be real, unless you're from Canada, you probably haven't watched much of the Kawhi-less defending champions. And when it comes to the description, unexpectedly winning or succeeding, remember that the Raptors over-under from Caesar prior to the season was 45 wins. They already had 46 wins when the season was suspended after just 63 games. At the same time, we are talking about winning the title here, and not just regular season games. So when you're talking about a dark horse, you might throw other names into the hat as potential dark horse contenders just because they have the star power. But in my opinion, a dark horse should be a team that still has a reasonable chance to win the title. That's because in the NBA, more often than not, talent prevails in the end. And the Cinderella stories are rarely teams that come completely out of nowhere. Since the turn of the century, every single NBA champion was at least the third seed in their conference. And the last time a third seed even won a title was in 2011. But okay, if conference standings aren't enough to convince you of just how thin the realistic contenders should really be, then let's look at net rating. In the same span, the lowest net rating of any NBA champion was plus 3.5. Only 3 teams had a net rating below plus 5, and 2 of them were Lakers teams that were likely coasting during the regular season because they won the title the year before. Right now, only 6 teams in the league have a net rating above plus 3.5, and one of them, the Dallas Mavericks, is the 7th seed in the West. Now take note that the median net rating for NBA champions since the year 2000 is plus 7.1. Using that as a barometer, we can see that the Bucks and Lakers are clearly the favorites to win the title. Surprise, surprise. The Clippers are below the median line, but with Paul George's injuries and Kawhi's load management, they should definitely be considered a favorite as well. Based on this metric, that leaves the Toronto Raptors and Boston Celtics as the only contenders that are both realistic yet not in the upper echelon. I won't fault you for choosing the Celtics as your dark horse choice. They are the popular selection by many in the NBA media. But remember, we still have 8 games to play this season. As it stands, the Raptors are 5.5 games above the 4th seed Miami Heat, making it virtually impossible for them to fall out of the top 3. The Celtics are only 2.5 games above Miami, so they aren't necessarily assured a spot within this criteria of mine. So I believe the Raptors, who according to Caesar have just the 6th best odds to win the championship behind the Celtics and even the Rockets, are the team best suited to be called a dark horse. But I also want to make the case for the defending champs to potentially repeat. My case for the Raptors is grounded mostly in the common saying, defense wins championships. Kawhi Leonard is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and has made 5 all-defensive teams. Yet despite the loss of Kawhi Leonard, the Raptors have actually improved defensively this year, upping their defensive rating by nearly 2 points. What was already a top 5 defense last season turned into a top 2 defense this year. So how did they do it? Well, for one, they have the personnel. From top to bottom, the Raptors are filled with marvelous team defenders. Not all of them are individually great defenders or have the athleticism to be considered elite on-ball defenders like their former franchise savior, but they are all high IQ and high effort players whose strengths are maximized by the mastermind behind it all, Nick Nurse. Before I talk about how creative Nick Nurse is, I first want to shout out Mike Prada, formerly of SB Nation, whose analysis I'm honestly pulling from and summarizing. I highly suggest you check out his thorough analysis of the Raptors defense by clicking the link in the description down below. Prada compares the Raptors defense to a haunted house. With their many hyper-athletic and active players, combined with a plethora of trapping defenses and other exploratory schemes, opponents often feel like they're seeing ghosts. On your screen right now are a bunch of defensive plays from 2 particular Raptors games. A 30-point comeback against the Mavs and an 11-point comeback against the Pacers in less than 3 minutes. I won't pick apart the plays themselves, but you can easily notice here why the Raptors rank number 2 in the league in deflections per game. Their defense is just so suffocating. To provide more statistical proof of just how disruptive their defense is, allow me to pull another great tidbit from Prada's piece. Now bear with me on these numbers. Cleaning the Glass has a beautiful stat that calculates what effective field goal percentage a team should give up based on the location of the shots of their opponent. In other words, if you're giving up a lot of shots at the rim or on corner threes, in theory, your opponents should have a higher effective field goal percentage. Because the Raptors give up the second most 3-pointers per game, and in fact the most from the corner 3, their opponent's location effective field goal percentage is 53.8%, or what is 25th in the league. But their opponent's actual effective field goal percentage is just 50.7%, or 3rd in the league. I know that might be a handful of statistical data, but let me put it simply. When you get an open 3 in pickup basketball, doesn't it still feel like a more difficult shot if there's a massive dude running at you, even if he's 5 feet away? And wouldn't you feel a little bit more pressure to have to nail that shot if your team exhausted so much just to get you that wide open? Or have you ever had a time when you thought you were wide open, so you did take the shot, but the defender closed out so quickly that he actually contested your shot by the time you took it? Well, that's what the Raptors defense does. Let's not forget that the Toronto Raptors was the team that solved the Giannis dilemma last season, and I'm inclined to think that they still have one of the best shots to at least slow down the Greek Freak and potentially LeBron or even Kawhi in the finals. Now, even without Kawhi, the Raptors can throw a much improved Pascal Siakam, have OG Anunoby as well, and have one of the best and most innovative defensive minds patrolling the sideline. Do I think they'll do it? I'd still probably put my money against it. In fact, for all those amazing stats I mentioned about the Raptors defense, remember that the Bucks, who they essentially must beat to make it out of the East, led the league in defensive rating, opponent's field goal percentage, contested shots per game, rebounding, rebound percentage, opponent's at-rim frequency and accuracy, and are in the top 5 in basically any other defensive stat you can imagine. And that's on top of the fact that they are 6th in offensive rating. Okay, Colin, enough with all of these stats. What I'm trying to say here is that even though the Bucks are the favorites, you can't say that there isn't at least a realistic possibility that one of Nick Nurse's out-of-the-box defensive ideas somehow cracks the Giannis puzzle again. The fact that that possibility does exist is exactly why I believe the Raptors are the league's truest dark horse. So despite all that hype I just put out about Toronto, I must make this caveat. The Raptors are only going to win this thing if everything falls into place. Again. Remember, this is a team that Kawhi often carried offensively in the playoffs. For as much as the Raptors have improved defensively without Kawhi, they've also fallen from 5th to 12th in offensive rating this season. This is also a team that has not stayed healthy for most of the year. The Raptors are 5th in cumulative missed games this season, and the Indiana Pacers are the only other current playoff team in the top 10. The Raptors can't afford to lose someone the same way they did Anunoby during last year's run. And in that same vein, the Raptors were the beneficiaries of freak injuries suffered by the Warriors in the finals. I'm not saying that the title comes with an asterisk, but it's further proof that there are just some dominoes that need to fall the right way for teams to taste a championship. This season's Raptors may need a lot more dominoes to fall than the Bucks or the Lakers or even the Clippers, but they are still just one of a few teams whose trail of plastic blocks can fall long enough to reach an NBA title. I hope you guys enjoyed the first of these bubble previews. I'm going to try to make as many as I can before the season starts. So please do subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when a new video comes out. And I'll catch you guys in the next bubble preview.